Welcome back to BTN Live. Michigan will play the first ever nighttime spring game in program history this weekend. You can only see it right here on BTN. Our coverage from Ann Arbor begins at 6 Eastern, 5 Central, Friday night. For more on that game, we are joined by our good friend Angelique Chengelis, who covers the Michigan Wolverines for the Detroit News. Angelique, there's always so much build-up to a spring game, and many times it appears to be very vanilla. So what should we actually expect to see on Friday night? What does Jim Harbaugh really want to get out of this game?
I think what Jim really wants to get out of this, Rick, is seeing his quarterbacks, and it's a competition between three. I mean, it's Wilton Spade, it's John O'Korn, it's Shane Morris, and he wants to see those guys, as he says, taking live bullets. And he hasn't really been able to see that in the spring. I mean, they've had a lot of practices, obviously, but not facing the defense like they will Friday night. And he wants to get a better sense for how these quarterbacks handle that kind of pressure. And I think he feels good about the three, but wants to see them in this setting.
At the same time, though, typically you don't see defenses throw out everything they have in their arsenal in these type of games. How much do you expect to see from new coordinator Don Brown's defense on Friday night?
I think he's going to keep it very vanilla, as you said. And I think, and you know, he mentioned about Jabril Peppers, and he's working him at Sam, and it's a hybrid position. And they've got all sorts of things they're doing with Jabril Peppers that they don't want you to see, they don't want me to see, they don't want any opponents to see. So I think they're going to keep it very basic. I think what we should know about Don Brown is that he's a blitzing, attacking kind of guy, and not entirely different from DJ Durkin. A lot of the players call Don Brown DJ's dad, and in the sense of that kind of hyper intensity he brings to practices that they all thrive on. But he is wants a very aggressive defense, and you know, maybe we'll see shades of that in the game, but I think he's going to keep a lot of it under the lid.
So heading into Friday night, you mentioned the three quarterbacks that right now are in competition for the starting job. Does one appear to have an edge over the other two?
I think most people would say that O'Korn is penciled in, and he's a guy who's got the most starting experience. He was at Houston. He sat out last year. He led the scout team at Michigan, and Jed Fish, the pass game coordinator, has talked about how different it is to lead a scout team versus coming in and leading the first team offense. But I think from all accounts, he's got a very strong arm. He's a terrific leader. He's different than Jake Rudock from last year in the sense that he probably takes a little more chances, but he also looks to run if the play's breaking down. And he did live with Jake Rudock last year and learned a lot from him in terms of how to study film and how to be more of a student of the game.
Angelique, there's no question that as good as Jake Rudock was a year ago, Jim Harbaugh would like to rely less on the quarterback and more on the running back. And over the past couple of years, whether it was personnel or injuries, they haven't really been able to run the football consistently between the tackles. Does that change this year? And if so, who leads the charge?
Well, you're absolutely right, Rick. And Devion Smith is the leader. I mean, Tyrone Wheatley, the running backs coach, and Jim Harbaugh have said he's the number one guy. And he had a very strong performance in the bowl game, in the Citrus Bowl. And I think this ties into the offensive line really being cohesive and consistent. They lose Graham Glasgow at center. They might move in Grant Newsome at left tackle, moving Mason Cole to center. That's how they've been practicing this spring. But having some consistency there certainly helps the running game. And behind Devion, you've got Ty Isaac, who didn't do much last year after the Maryland game. He had a couple fumbles. He's lost some weight. He feels more driven to be better this year. There's Drake Johnson, who's probably almost fully healthy now, coming off his second ACL. He played, he wasn't quite 100% last year, and he had a strong bowl game.
All right, finally, Angelique, I spoke with Jordan Lewis yesterday. We talked about the submarine philosophy of Jim Harbaugh, and that it worked a year ago because there were so many unknowns and the expectations weren't really there. The expectations obviously are there this year. Many people picking this team as the favorite in the Big Ten. So does the submarine still work, or is it impossible at this point to keep those outside expectations from creeping in?
Well, I think that Jim Harbaugh is making it clear he likes this team from this year to last year. He says the team is way more athletic. It's got a different edge. And, I think he feels very good about the defense where it is right now. I mean, all across the board, even with replacing the starting linebackers. And look, I mean, Rick, he had 4 practices in Florida that were open to media and to coaches. And then he had the practice at Ford Field last Saturday open. So that's the most I've seen a Michigan practice in quite a few years. So I don't think that's a change in philosophy. I don't think going forward that the preseason camps will be open, those practices will be open, but I think he feels good enough to put his team out there for people to see.
Great stuff, as always, on the Wolverines from Angelique Chengelis, Michigan football beat writer for the Detroit News. Angelique, appreciate the time. Enjoy the game on Friday night.
Thank you, Rick.